Welcome back, CBS Sports HQ, getting you ready for the National Championship and taking a look at some of the players that we could see going in the draft in the first round. Ryan Wilson's latest mock draft has 5 Georgia players going in the first round. That's how many we saw go in the first round last year as well. TCU didn't have a single player drafted last season. 1, according to Ryan Wilson right now, and Quentin Johnston, but a lot of players who have helped their draft stock over the season also in that game against Michigan. We'll talk about that as well. Let's welcome back Brady, Quinn, Danny Kanell. I'm Amanda Guerra. We are now joined by our draft expert, Ryan Wilson, here. All right, Ryan, going through some of these players. To start with Jalen Carter from Georgia. You have him going 2nd overall to the Bears, ahead of Alabama's Will Anderson. I'm curious, is this you just entertaining yourself, or do you genuinely think he will be drafted ahead of Will Anderson?
I mean, they're 1A and 1A.1 in terms of what you could expect from them next year. They play different positions. One's an edge rusher and Will Anderson, the other one's a defensive tackle. But Jalen Carter could end up being, and you mentioned, Amanda, the 5 players last year off that Georgia defense that was drafted in round 1. Jalen Carter could end up being the best player of that group. And by the time it's all said and done, as we just talked about this latest mock draft, there could be 10 players off the Georgia teams over the last 2 years that went in round 1. And Jalen Carter is a game changer. And he's a game changer in a way that is somehow more effective than what we saw from Jordan Davis last year playing in the middle of that Georgia defense and the things he's been able to do when healthy for the Philadelphia Eagles. And if you're the Bears and you want someone in the middle of the defense at number 2, you take Jalen Carter. If you want to solidify the edge rush position and they need help at both places, you take Will Anderson. But it's not outrageous to think that teams will take Jalen Carter ahead of Will Anderson if they have needs at both positions. But like I said, you're not going to go wrong with either player. And they're both really good young men, and they're both great teammates, and I suspect they're both going to be impact players from day one when they get to the NFL.
He's the best overall player in this draft. So it makes a lot of sense. I think if you're looking at the Chicago Bears, they've got their quarterback for the future, Justin Fields. So once you take off that premium, Danny, that we always see with quarterbacks looked at the top of the draft, then you start looking at the best overall prospect. The Bears need a lot of help on their roster. And Matt Eberflus is defensive-minded head coach. I'm sure he's licking his chops looking at this pick going, please, 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 let us continue to stay at this spot so we have a chance to get Jalen Carter. He's a special player, special talent. He'll immediately start, have an impact, and help change the dynamic of the Bears defense.
I don't want to nitpick, but you think he's better than Will Anderson Jr.?
I do. I think he's, to me, the concern I have about Will Anderson is he makes everything look so easy. And I think there's an element of twitchiness that maybe he lacks. And almost I don't know how to describe it. When I remember seeing Von Miller come out, and granted I was still playing back then, you saw us burst off the line, you're like, oh wow, that guy's going to come into the league and immediately be able to bring that. With Will Anderson, it's almost like I don't see it quite as twitchy of an edge rusher as I did a guy like a Von Miller, for example, even though I think he's going to have a successful career, he'll be incredible. I had the same concerns with Trayvon Walker out of Georgia last year, and you kind of see that now in the NFL. You're going, all right, maybe he lacks a little of that twitchiness. I just think Jalen Carter is a complete player all the way around to that position. And you can make the case for Will Anderson. I'm just a little curious to see how the transition goes.
I don't know. I think Will Anderson Jr. is the guy I would go with. Clearly, it depends on need, what you're looking for, as Ryan said. I think that's going to be something that teams are going to be looking at. I do think there's some risk with the injuries that Jalen Carter's had this season. Didn't see him do that much against Ohio State, but then all you do is go throw on the SEC championship game on when he has Jaden Daniels in one arm and he's got him with the one finger in another.
I think what you missed in Ohio State then was he was the guy who was running C.J. Stroud out of the pocket.
Yeah.
Remember we learned how well
But he also
could
came
run?
out of the game after 12 plays because he was tired. I think with the bigger guys, there's more of a risk that endurance, some of those issues could come into play.
By the way, Georgia rotates their guys. I wouldn't necessarily say him out because he was necessarily tired. I mean, there's some element of that, but they rotate all their guys in their defense. I would just say this, if you're looking at his impact, they're very aware of who's going to wreck this game. They weren't trying to let him, but he was still at least flushing C.J. Stroud out of the pocket. So, look, you can't go wrong either way.
Right.
If you're the Bears, you need help on the edge, an interior player, you can go either way here. I like them both. I just think between the two, I'd probably lean a little bit towards Jalen Carter.
Jalen Carter, 2 separate injuries in the first half of the season, including an MCL sprain, has started the last 5 games, though. All right, next guy coming up, Ryan. Keely Ringo, Georgia cornerback, 6th overall to the Lions is where you have him going right now. This was the guy who stealed the national championship for the Bulldogs last season, had a last-minute pick 6. Ryan, how has he transformed this season?
And you talk about that last-minute pick six and being a lasting image as we headed into this season. And he's big, he's strong, he's fast, he has the ball skills, as you talked about, Amanda. But here's the thing. He didn't ball out against Marvin Harrison Jr., and no shame in that. But I say that because if you go back and watch the Penn State-Ohio State game this year, Joey Porter Jr., who is a similar size, speed, height guy, he balled out against Marvin Harrison Jr. as much as you can against probably the best college football player coming back to school. And you want to see that in big games, and we haven't always seen it this season with Keely Ringo. Now, this huge interception here against Hendon Hooker, that was nice, no doubt about it. A Will Levis interception, I can only imagine, that's also nice. But when you talk about big quarterbacks, like Sauce Gardner last year, Derek Stingley last year, go back a few years ago to Patrick Surtain and J.C. Horn, I think in terms of that, you have Keely Ringo probably fifth in that group. No shame in that, but if he balls out against Quentin Johnston, then perhaps we can reevaluate where he is in that standing among those cornerbacks I just mentioned. But I want to see more. Doesn't mean he can't do it. It just hasn't been there consistently for me. And part of me wonders as we get through this draft process if he'll slip a little bit among the cornerback rankings. We'll see a Joey Porter Jr., we'll see a Christian Gonzalez move up the board and perhaps challenge him to be the first cornerback off the board.
Ryan, that was my first thought, is I thought this was a little bit high at 6. I think he'll go a little bit lower than this, because we know how scouts and GMs are going to do. They're going to throw on your best competition, who you're playing against. And I thought it was a rough night against Marvin Harrison Jr., and there's no shame in that, but that's the type of talent you're going to be going up against Sundays. So that's the film they're going to want to study. And also, I know we're showing highlights because we want to talk about a player and we want to present him in a positive way. Against Tennessee, they also got behind him a couple times and weren't able to connect on some of those throws. So I think he's been susceptible to some big plays. He's also stepped up and made big plays, as we talked about. Huge pick in last year's national championship game. And I do think he'll be a first rounder. I just think at 6, it's a little bit lofty.
It's obviously a need for the Detroit Lions, though. I mean, they need cornerback help. They've given up a bunch of yards in the passing game at times this year. So the position makes a lot of sense. Whether or not it ends up being Ringo in this spot, that's up for debate.
Did I say sealed?
Maybe.
Is that what I said? Sealed. Sealed the national championship. That game was not really a question at any point. All right, let's talk about Quentin Johnston, TCU wide receiver. The only player, Ryan, he got from TCU going in the first round. Right now, 12th overall to the Texans. You do have him behind USC's Jordan Addison. So how close is Quentin Johnston to being your wide receiver 1?
Well, in full disclosure, he is my wide receiver 1, but this is a nod to Brady Quinn, who brought up last week that perhaps Jordan Addison might surpass Quentin Johnston. Now, they're different type of players, no doubt about it. One's enormous and one's on the smaller side, but they're both great playmakers. I think Quentin Johnston, the thing I love about him at 6'4", huge catch radius. So if you're going to a team with a young quarterback, and I have him going to Houston where he'll be paired up with Bryce Young, it helps to have a guy you can throw the ball to and he'll catch it no matter what. And then as you see here, he plays like he's about 5'10", 5'11" in terms of short area shiftiness, and that's also what you like. He's not a stiff-hipped, straight-line speed guy who can just beat you down the field. He can beat you short, intermediate, and deep, and he does it consistently. And again, like we just mentioned, let's see how he matches up against Keely Ringo. He usually shows up in big games, Quentin Johnston does, and he proves to be the playmaker, as we see here from last Saturday. And I think he could have a great game against Keely Ringo. Keely Ringo will certainly be, he'll be competitive about it and he'll want to prove himself. But I think at the end of the day, Johnston's going to come out on top and continue to make his case along with Jordan Addison, why they're two of the best wide receivers in this draft class.
Johnston moves so well for a guy of his frame. You don't see many 6'4" guys, wide receivers, move the way he does. Ryan kind of touched on that. That's one of the things that really stood out to me. When you got a big catch radius like that, usually you're thinking, all right, contested catches, right? High pointing the football, 50-50 balls. In this case, it's yards after the catch and its ability to, run those intermediate routes and be able to do something with it afterwards. So I could easily see him being the number 1 wide receiver taken in this draft class. I think Jordan Addison between Pitt, USC, to me is kind of displayed maybe I don't want to say a little more NFL ready, but if you look at the variety of offenses and routes that he's run during his time, I think he looks to be, to me, a little bit more of a finished product maybe at this point. But look, Marvin Harrison Jr. is better than both of them. He can't come out until next year, so.
Yeah, looking at if giving you space is the ultimate sign of respect. I mean, Michigan didn't have a guy like 10 yards within the line of scrimmage of him, and that's a good thing. But good luck trying to stop him. I'm with you guys. I love the season he's had. I love some of the shiftiness he's had. I'm always partial to the big wide receiver with the big catch radius. Can make up some deficiencies if your quarterback might struggle or is getting hit, can't be as accurate. So I love where you've got him here.
Ryan has him going 12th overall to the Texans. We're going to jump down 10 spots. 22nd overall to the Patriots. Right now you have Broderick Jones, Georgia offensive tackle, Ryan. Former 5-star, 6'4", 310. What comes up reading about him, a lot of people still think he's a little raw. This is his first full season starting. So why is he a solid first rounder for you, or is he?
I think the athleticism is the thing that jumps out. And you mentioned, Amanda, he hasn't played a ton of football as a starter in the SEC. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but you have to understand that when you draft a player like this, that you can't throw him in there right away. He may need to be eased into that role, and that's not necessarily a bad thing either. Rick Spielman, the former general manager for the Vikings, talked about this on the podcast that we do, about how he needs some technique work. He needs to work on his footwork, needs to be a little more patient, use his hands better, all the things you talk about when you talk about young offensive linemen. But in his case, Broderick's case, he's a fantastic athlete, and that will get you a long way at the highest levels of college football. It'll just need to be tuned up a little bit once he gets to the NFL. Now, I think Mac Jones would probably agree that he needs help along the offensive line. They need help several places on that offense, and I would imagine Mac Jones will remain the quarterback going into next year. And if that's the case, why not protect him better and then go from there in terms of trying to reset that offense?
Ryan, 2 spots behind him in your latest mock, you have Nolan Smith, Georgia edge rusher, 24th overall to the Ravens. Suffered a torn pec in November. We have not seen him since. He will not play in this game. You are not worried about that at all?
No, and it'll be fun to see exactly where he ends up, because he could end up being a second-round pick. He's about 235 is what he played at. He doesn't play that light. He plays like he's a much bigger player in terms of going forward. He's incredibly bendy. He can win in terms of initial pass rush moves. He's not asked to do a ton of driving into coverage. So if that's something you're looking for as an NFL defensive coordinator, Nolan Smith may not be your guy early on. But I think the athleticism's there, the quickness there, the sideline-to-sideline ability, all the things you love in quote-unquote today's modern edge rusher. Nolan Smith gives you all that. And again, the pec injury is not a long-term concern, no doubt about that. But I think he'll be somewhere in the range of 25 to perhaps 40 where he ends up getting drafted based on what teams think about him as we get through this process.
Nolan Smith's going to be fascinating to see how teams look at him as how they view him, either as an edge player or an off-the-ball linebacker. He kind of strikes me with the size that Ryan talked about as more of an off-the-ball linebacker. However, he rushes really well off of the edge. He's versatile, so I could see Baltimore really loving the fact that he can do a bunch of things within their scheme. That is something that would fit his skill set. But that's going to be the biggest thing is, whenever we get players who are either tweeners or who are so versatile, they can do a multitude of things. Sometimes you have teams like, they're like, I don't know how to view this guy. I got to put him into a box and figure out how he fits into our scheme. I think that's the only concern here. He's a tremendous talent. The injury is no concern. He'll be fine coming off from that. It's what do teams view him as? Is he an off-the-ball linebacker, or do they view him as an edge rusher that needs to put on a little extra weight?
And is there a team that values just a football player with, kind of moving toward position-less defense, where you just want somebody that you can line up in different spots, that's versatile, that can go get the quarterback, that can line up, that can run with tight ends and pass coverage, can do a lot of things. I think also, too, with the injury, I don't think there's any concern whatsoever from teams. They've seen enough on tape, and it kind of goes back to where we put so much emphasis on, what happens if players get hurt in bowls? Most injuries you can come back with. We've seen it happen before. Teams are going to take you based on the film you put out there, trusting that you'll be back and healthy by the time the season starts, and I think that'll be the case with Nolan Smith.
Last Georgia player we're going to talk about, Ryan has going in the first round, Darnell Washington, Georgia tight end. Ryan, at the beginning of the season, all we talked about was tight end Eric Gilbert. Now we're talking about Darnell Washington, and Eric Gilbert is in the transfer portal, so what makes him so attractive?
And Brock Bauer is the guy that you go to when you think about Georgia tight ends. He's not draft eligible just yet, but he's certainly a special talent we'll be talking about next year. Darnell Washington's interesting. I think off the top of my head, he had something like 44 career receptions, and the majority of those came this season. He's 6'7"-ish, he's 260-ish, and he looks like an NFL offensive lineman from the 70s, and he can block, and that's what you love about him initially. If you're an NFL team drafting a tight end in today's NFL, typically there are not a lot of blocking tight ends there. You're getting a guy who can play inline or even flex out and play in the slot and provide things in the pass game. Darnell Washington is a blocker first, but he is also becoming a red zone threat. He has good hands. He'll have the occasional focus drop. He's not going to run he may run a 4.6, I don't know, but he's a lumbering guy. He's not going to get up to speed in 1 or 2 steps, but he gets up to speed and then he eats up cushion. So he's going to be a much better pro, I feel like, than he is a college player. And he's a pretty good college player, but only because of the experience that he'll gain at the next level. But he can come in right away as a blocker and help your offense, and then you can use him as a red zone target in specialty situations. And then 2 or 3 years from now, we're talking about what a fantastic football player and what a bargain it was for the NFL team that drafts him anywhere in round 1 or somewhere early in round 2, I would imagine.
I think it's interesting you got him here with the Chiefs because he's had a great tight end on the other side of him playing at Georgia. And if he was on the opposite side of Travis Kelce and ran some 12 personnel, you talk about nightmare matchups potentially, for the opposing defenses trying to line up. I also think it's refreshing to see a return to maybe finding value in a tight end who can actually block. We're seeing more teams trying to run the football more to get opposing defenses out of 2 shell. What's the thing that the Chiefs have faced a ton of that forces them to be more conservative? It's the 2 high safeties where they're daring you to run the football more. I think some team we'll maybe see a return to value of tight ends that can actually block as well as run routes.
I think it's interesting to think if Kansas City stays in this pick. Usually at the end of the first round, you see teams who are looking to come up and maybe take a first-round quarterback at this spot, especially one that maybe has a little development issues, but you get that 5th-year option that's so important to the team. And so in this spot, I wonder if Kansas City stays put. Do they value the tight end position enough, or what Washington's skill set is to put him with the Travis Kelce, or do they say, I feel like we can get maybe him in the 2nd round or someone similar in the 2nd round to help out with Travis Kelce? We'd rather accumulate more picks, and you get someone trading up to take a quarterback in that spot. And Anthony Richardson maybe. I don't think Will Levis will fall that far based on how everyone else feels about him, but Richardson's one to keep an eye on. Maybe Hendon Hooker, some of the other quarterbacks we've seen this year really excel, potentially the back end of the first round.
Ryan Wilson with 5 Georgia players going in the first round. Where things stand as of this moment, that's how many we saw go in the first round last year as well. Not too worried about Georgia rebuilding, though, because we just saw it happen this season. Ryan Wilson, thank you so much. Ryan Wilson, if you don't know, has a new podcast with the first pick. He is now doing double duty. He will start giving us with the first pick. It's great.
Great name for a podcast.
With the first pick, Ryan Wilson, right?
Yep.
And Rick Spielman.
I love the fact that Ryan's doing a little bit less mock drafts, but now they're giving a podcast he's got to do to replace that.
Ryan is always working. Make sure to download and follow.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.